Hey there, it's James with Carps Bees, and as anyone that's watched this channel for any length of time knows, I'm using this solar box as an experimental way to melt wax. So I think we've moved beyond the experimental phase, and throughout this summer, we've had some really good success getting some wax rendered down. And how that works is you just take a pretty basic styrofoam box here, you line it with some aluminum foil, paint it black. And then what you'd want to do is put some kind of pan in here to capture the wax that's melting. I use a silicone pan, find that's the easiest thing to work with. So you put that in there, you set this little stand on here, there, a screen stand. You can line this with paper towel, that works pretty well. That'll get you some really clean wax. I do find though that it's hard to get that paper towel off later, so I've switched over to using a nylon paint strainer, essentially a bag. So I put all my wax cappings and wax junk in that bag and then set it on top of this. And then if you need this extra extension to kind of keep it all nice and tight and dripping down into the center here, you can use this extension. You put this all in here, close it up with your lid that has, a piece of plastic over it. The lid's cut out. I use a piece of greenhouse glass, double pane. It seems to work pretty good, and we've had a lot of success. So what I want to talk to you about now is, well, how do you take it to the next level? So the wax that this renders is pretty good. If you're going to use it on frames, if people need it for things like working with wood or leather, it's great, no problem there. But if people want to make candles, they need really pristine, perfectly clean wax, then you might want to take it to the next level. So that's what I want to talk to you about next here. So we're going to go into the house. I'll show you the process I go through to get perfectly clean wax. So let's go. So we got the air show today. I don't know my planes that well. Spitfires or something like that maybe, but they're doing kind of some mock battles. It's kind of cool. All right, so how do we take something like this? So this basically came out of the solar heater. Again, really good wax. I'm just gonna grab it here and show you that, the top of this is pretty clean. There's a few little marks in there you can see. Some stuff got through. And then on the bottom of this, what you end up with is a little sticky mess here. So the honey will separate out. Some of the crud that slipped through the screen ended up in the bottom here. Maybe you're checking this, you lift the lid, a bee flies in or some ants get in or something, and you get a lot of this junk and you want to get it to the next level. So what I want to show you how to do is how to get that to something more like this. So here's 1 pound disc of absolutely perfectly clean, pure beeswax. So not a speck on this piece. And I'll just show you the back so you can just see it's absolutely spotless. So really nice disc of wax, perfect for doing things like candles, and if somebody just absolutely needs perfectly clean wax, there you have it. So all right, we'll take you through the process. Some of the things you're going to need, you want a scale so you can weigh your wax. I find that these silicone pans are perfect for this type of activity. The other thing you want is some kind of silicone, or you can use wax paper, maybe even a couple layers of newspaper, whatever you have, but you don't want to let this wax get all over your counters, your stove top, anything like that in your kitchen. That's not going to make for a happy cleanup situation. You don't want to be scraping wax off stuff. So again, be ultra careful about, making sure that if you do spill wax, which you will, that you have an easy way to clean up. And again, I find these kind of silicone pads and baking sheets and stuff are super helpful. So I have a whole set of those that I can put under a pan, even like put another one under, so I can do that. And then you may want some kind of harder, stiffer metal cookie sheet or something that you can put some of this stuff on, because this stuff tends to be a little wobbly. You can see here, so that'll provide some stability. The other thing I'll mention is we're going to go through a process of melting the initially rendered wax from the solar heater, but we're going to want to run through that in additional screen. And what I'm using here is pretty simple. It's you can buy these at the Dollar Tree, $1.25 now, and you know, it's basically a strainer or a cover for a pot, and it has a metal screen in it, which is pretty fine. And then I took a paint straining nylon bag and wrapped it around there, used a rubber band around the handle, and I run all the wax through this into the you know, the next place that we'll be rendering. So we'll show that process as we go through this. But that seems to do the trick. You can see it's captured a lot of the junk there, so that's great. And that's exactly what we want to have happen. So, all right, we'll walk you through it and show you how it goes. But what we do need is our screen here. It's gonna make sure the dirty part's on the top. You see how we've had clean stuff flowing through. And when we pour, we want to be pretty slow because you kind of want to like heat a hole up essentially so it can go through and in. So the tricky part is what we're going to do right now, which is about getting this out of the oven. We've been heating this at 185. That's an important temperature. You go really any more above 185, 190, 200, whatever, because you want to speed things up. If there's any honey that's separating, it's going to basically burn that or turn it to like a molasses, and you don't want to do that. If you can have the honey separate out and save it, you probably want to do that. So don't sell it as raw honey though, because once you've heated it, it's not raw honey, but you could use it for your own purposes and cooking and stuff. And there we go. So you can see this is some dirty, slightly dirty wax. And I'm being very careful here not to spill. Last thing we want is a stove top covered with wax. That would be a mess. Okay. And we're going to keep the oven running because once we're done, we're going to put this back in there to make sure every little bit of it is melted back down before we do the final pour into our 1 pound discs. So again, I like these silicone pans because it has a piece of metal running around the rim here, so it's pretty sturdy up top, but what you do need to remember is on the bottom it gets a little saggy as it gets heated. So we're going to do is just bring this over, pick an edge here, get right to the center, and just very slowly at first pour through here. Make sure a nice little wax hole kind of gets burned through so we're not running all over the sieve. We're going to pour all this into that lower pan, and we're going to see all the junk get stuck in the top here. All right, and we'll give it a sec here because we want to make sure we get as much of this wax out as possible. All this process from, you know, the bees doing their work, kind of secreting the wax, creating the comb, the cappings, all that good stuff, from us using gathering it, doing honey extraction, you know, getting it into the solar heater, maybe running it through that once or twice, depending on how hot it got, to now at this stage of the game here. So we don't like to leave any behind. The good news though about wax is it will, at least in the silicone pan here, it will, you know, turn solid again, and you can peel it off and do it again. So that's the nicest thing about wax. So there you go. So I'd say that's pretty good. You can see it's already starting to harden up there. All right. And the one thing I will note, even with this setup, when you pick this up, you can still have little pools of wax trapped in here because it is, you know, taking out some junk. So just when you lift it, just go slow, kind of tilt it back before, make sure anything drips down. And I think we're good. A few little drips there. So what we should be left with here is just some extremely clean wax. So I'm going to take this, just set it over here. And I'm just looking through here to see if any junk made its way through. I do notice a little speck. It could be an air pocket. Hold on. Yep, that's what it was. It was an air pocket. So we're going to do two things now with the oven. We're going to put this in, get this to melt down a little bit here so we're back to melted before we put it in the final form, which I'll show you. That's actually a pie tin form, and that's where we're actually going to, as we put the liquid in, we're gonna weigh it. So we know we're at 1 pound. And I'd usually do 1 pound and 1/4 ounce just to make sure I'm not shorting any customers. Let me show you what we have. So here you have it. This was through the solar heater, did a pretty good job, actually into that pan right there. But you see some crud did make it through. So we're gonna just run it through again. And then we will pour into the clean area and then do a final mold after that. So we could try to combine this into there, but then you got the danger of spillage, and it's better just to be safe than sorry. Do smaller batches. And I do use both the upper and lower racks here. The upper rack's a little hotter, so that's where I'm gonna put this more solid brick of wax. And then we're gonna take our, and again, just don't spill it. Nice and slow, take it easy. All right, down we go. All right. And because that's already mostly liquid, it should go pretty quick. We'll probably get to pull that out here in not too long. Yeah, still too hot to grab with the hand. Now we can pour our wax before it. And I'll pick a spot right there. And again, we're only pouring it through this sieve just because we want to be doubly sure that there's no crud coming through. So here we go. We're watching the weight. 6, 7 ounces, 8, 9, 10, try to get to 16, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and there's 16. We can stop. 16 and 1/4. That's what I like to do. Now some of this will be trapped up here at top, so I'd guess about 1/4 will maybe be up top. We'll give it a little extra just to be sure. There we go. 1 3/8. 1 pound 3/8 ounce. So that's good. All right. Move this away where it can actually harden up.